Hi, JT. It's Teresa. Let us know when you're ready to get started. That way we can start the recording, okay?
You know what to do with the rest of it.
Teresa Spillers
is now joining.
That's my mess right here with the phone. Okay. All right. Call to you later.
I'm not getting any sound. Why am I not getting any sound? Okay.
Hey, John, this is Carla. I'm hearing you just fine.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes, John, this is Carla. I can hear you.
Yes, John.
Yes,
Taylor, her, I can hear you.
Okay.
we can hear you.
Let me know when we're ready to go and we'll get started.
John, whenever you're ready, the recording has already started, so it's yours.
Okay. Let's check. Can everybody hear me? Because I can't hear anybody else talking right now.
Nope, we're all muted except for you.
I can hear you, John. Thank you.
We can hear
Already
you.
hearing you.
I can hear you.
We hear you. We're here.
Marilyn, Barbie,
Is now joining.
Hello, everyone. Again, please just be a little bit patient with us. As we can see, John's having a little bit of technical issues, but we'll work this out. So just please stay with us.
Okay, there we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you, JT. There seems to be a little bit of an echo, but we'll see what happens as you kind of progress in this.
Well, for some reason, it's not giving me sound out of my Surface, and I also have it on my iPad, so I have to kind of watch the captions if anybody says anything, but I'll turn the volume up and down when we get to the question and answer period. Okay, are we ready to go here?
Correct. And you may want to close the window because I'm seeing myself inside your screen. So
there we go. Does that look better?
thank you.
Is that better? Can you see it now?
No, it's gone. Thank you very much for that. We can go ahead and get started.
Okay. Welcome to today's training. I'm John Stevenson. I'm an assistant professor. I teach U.S. history, and I also work as a fellow with digital learning. Today we're going to be looking at the assignment tool. If you've been using Pause or Brightspace for a while, you might call it the Dropbox tool. I probably will a few times today as well. Okay, can everybody see my sandbox page? Be sure everybody can see online here. Can somebody say yes?
Yes, John, I
Yes,
can see
it.
Bruce.
Okay.
Yes.
The assignment tool, first we need to look at what is it. And then we're going to look at the assignment tool screen. And then we're going to look at creating a folder, because that's one of the best ways I found to show you all the different options on how to create a folder is just create one and go down the list as you create it. And then I will show you how to mark up an assignment and receive feedback in the assignment tool. The assignment tool does several things. It's being a central place where work is submitted. It, number one, keeps you from having to keep up with physical papers. Also, it saves at the end of the semester. At the end of the semester, when access is removed from your Pause course, the course itself is still there. And if students submit their work into the assignment tool, then if you have a student later who has some sort of grade appeal or something like that, we can restore access to your course and all of that work will be there. So it saves you having to have, physical papers that you're keeping somewhere. Also, you can use the assignment tool with a couple of other things to help improve student engagement. The two we're going to look at a little quickly today, because there are other trainings that focus on them, is the use of Rubrics and the use of Turnitin.com. But I'll talk more about what those are when we get to that part of the presentation. The assignment tool, hold on. The assignment tool is under assessment. So assessment, assignments. This will bring up the main assignment tool page, and it lists all of the folders that you've created. I've used this course for a long time, so there's a lot in here. But looking at this page, we can create a new assignment. we can, I don't know why my cursor is not moving fast enough. It's frozen. We can edit the categories, and we can also do more actions. From here, we can preview what is in the folder. We can reorder what's in the folder, the different files. Event log I will demonstrate we can use to restore deleted folders, and we can also control the visibility, and of course we can delete folders as well. And we can exclude students from Turnitin. Now, the best way to think of the assignment folders is think of them as each folder as a drawer in a filing cabinet, where every student has a folder in that drawer. So when you create a new folder, you're basically creating a new level of the filing cabinet in which every student has a folder that they can turn work into. You can also do bulk edit, just like with on the other tools, where there are some different things that you can do through bulk edit. And it's coming up very slowly. There we go. My internet at home is not exactly the fastest. Give it a second here. There we go. If I want to change categories, change titles, change availability, and I want to do it to several folders at one time, I can, through bulk edit, do that. This is if you haven't looked at the assignment tool in a while, this is actually a new book that came in the last year or so, where we have a category, and then we have the title of the folder. From the drop down next to it, I can view what's in it, I can edit it, and I can hide it. Submission log is a log of when students came into the folder, when they submitted their work. So if you have any problems with a student submission, you can go back to submission log and it'll have all the details about when they went on and when they submitted it. The logo here that looks like a ribbon, that means that this folder is tied to the gradebook. So there's a gradebook item that goes with this folder. So when I review students' work and put grades and feedback in here, it will automatically go to the gradebook. There are 4 new submissions that I have not seen. I have 5 students in this class, so 4 out of 5 have turned in their work. None have been evaluated and none have been published. With the pencil here, I can change the name of the category, but that's it. A lot of times when you see a pencil, there's several things you can do there, but here all I can do is change that category name, and I can delete that category. Now let's click and look in the folder itself. Here's the page that will show the assignments where students have turned in their work. These are the 4 students who have turned in their work. If I want to see who has not turned in their work, I can click Show Search Options, Show Everyone, click the magnifying glass, and then it will show all of my students. And I have 1 student who did not turn in their work. So notice that, and this is something that changed a while back in the assignment tool, even if a student does not submit their work, or submit anything into the folder, you can still leave evaluation for them. You still can put in a grade, you still can put in feedback, and it will still go through to the grade book. At one time, if a student didn't submit anything, you couldn't do any feedback or grading. You can do it whether they submit a paper or not. Now, looking at this page, I can edit the assignment. I can email the users who have not submitted the assignment. So if this assignment was due tomorrow, I could send a pause email to all of the students who have not
Is now joining.
who have not submitted it, and it will create a pause email with all of these addresses in the BCC so students don't see who else had not turned it in. And you can email those students who have not submitted their work. Add feedback files. There are a couple of ways that you can evaluate student work in the assignment tool. You can do it from within the pause environment. That's what we're going to look at. If you use Turnitin.com, you can also use Turnitin to evaluate from their website. Or you can download the student papers, mark them up, grade them, re-upload them into pause using a zip file. And if you were to do that, add feedback files is where you reload them back into pause. I don't know many faculty that use this method because if you use that, if you do the feedback in the pause environment, it's automatically there. It automatically goes to the grade book. If you download the assignments, mark them up in Word or PDF, whatever they're in, and then resubmit, reload them into pause, you then have to go and put the grade in the grade book. So I don't know many who use this option, but it is an option. Submission log just shows when students submitted their paper. Looking down here on this row, I can download these assignments. If I wanted a folder of them, maybe just for record keeping or whatever, I can download them. I can mark students and email them. I can mark them read or unread, delete them, or publish feedback. And we'll talk about published feedback here in a minute when we talk about how to evaluate student work. So to show the different options that you have, let's create a folder. So to create, and let me get back to my main assignments page here. To create a new assignment, you click New Assignment. You put in if you want, you can put instructions here. So keep in mind that if you are putting instructions here and you change something, you'll have to go back to each of these assignments and change those instructions right there. Also, if you use audio or video, first of all, it takes up a lot of bandwidth. And second, if you use a video message to the student here, you, to be ADA compliant, need to type into the instruction area there whatever it is that you have said in the video. You can also add an attachment for the student. Submission, completion, and categorization. There are two different types of assignments here. And most use individual assignment. I can't think of anybody who really uses group assignment. And what a group assignment is, well, in individual assignment, each student has their own folder. If I have groups doing presentations or working on a group project, I can actually create group folders where all the students in that group can access it. But I'll just keep it here with individual assignment. File submission type. This is also something that has expanded in the last year or so. In a file submission, that's just the typical student uploads their document to Paul's. That's the default. But there are also some other options here. Text submission. This allows students to type in their response. So if you choose text submission, when the student goes into the folder, it will open up an HTML editor like we just saw for the instructions, just like it would if they were taking a test or doing a discussion, and they can type or cut and paste their information in there. And then it will take that document, make a document out of it, and that's their submission. On paper submission. This is where students would give you a physical copy of the assignment, and you can then come in here and leave feedback for it. But it does not, the fact that it's on paper submission, the student doesn't submit anything, but you can use the assignment tool to give them feedback. The last option, observed in person. If you have students who are demonstrating something in class, for example, if you teach speech or something like that, you can create a folder where you can go in when the student is making their speech or doing their presentation, and you can leave feedback there as you're observing the student doing the presentation. But I would say most leave it at the default of file submission. That's kind of what people think of as the traditional student uploads their document into the assignment tool. How many submissions are you going to allow? I leave it at unlimited. I think personally, and it's just my opinion, that if students turn in their paper early and then decide that they need to change something, I think they should be able to do it. I'd let them do it in my classes up to the deadline. So I leave it at unlimited, and I leave it for keeping submissions. You can also set up for Pauls to send you an email when students submit to this folder. For most, I would suggest not doing this unless you want an email every time your student submits. But it can be helpful with some types of folders. For example, I allow students to submit a optional rough draft of their paper, which very few do. But I have that folder set up where it will email me. So I know, okay, a student's turned in their rough draft, let me go and look at it. Categories. Just like with the grade book the other day, categories can be used to really simplify and give structure to the assignment page. So we're going to put in the category, and you can see I've had many through training and testing stuff with Paul. You can create a new category, which will just open up and allow you to type in that new category. Evaluation and feedback. Here's where you can tie your folder here to a gradebook item. So you would choose the item. I would suggest, as what was said in the gradebook training the other day, is you create things in the gradebook, and then when you go to each tool, you link to the gradebook. So I'm just going to choose an item here. You can create a new grade item here, but like I said, I would create them in gradebook. And then when you go to discussions, assignments, quizzes, you can then link them to the grade book. Whenever you link to an item, you have to put the number of points that the assignment has. If you noticed, when I put in 100, it showed down here 100 of 100. This is how the student will see their grade. If you remember from the gradebook training the other day, there are two basic formats for the gradebook, percentage or points. Some prefer one, some prefer the other. I prefer points, so the fact that my gradebook is set up for points, it shows 100 of 100, where I want the student to see how many points they made out of 100 points, or whatever the maximum points are for that assignment. But I can change that for students if I wish. Rubrics. You can add rubrics to assignments.
Marilyn, Barbie.
Is now
So I
exiting.
would click add a rubric, and that will create a pop-up. And then I can choose what rubric I want. Now, quickly here, and there are, I believe the Teaching Academy right now is doing separate training on rubrics. So I don't want to go into great detail here, but what are rubrics? Well, rubrics allow students to know up front exactly the criteria you will use in grading their assignment. It will, here this one has 5 criteria: thesis, arguments,
Unknown
evidence, structure,
participant is now
mechanics.
joining.
It has 5 levels of achievement: excellent, good, average. You could equate that to A, B, or C. You can create rubrics that will compute the grade. This is a descriptive rubric. I prefer grading it and then filling out the rubric to give them the feedback. While this is something that is somewhat new, I can assure you your students have seen these, especially in the last 20 years or so with the focus on standardized testing in primary and secondary school. They've seen rubrics because it is one of the ways they use for evaluating student performance. But I like it because it lets the student know right up front exactly what I'm looking for in an excellent thesis and argument. And then when they receive their feedback, it's in the exact same words. So it lets the student know my expectations and then know exactly where their work fell within those expectations. And you will see this demonstrated here in a minute when we talk about grading an assignment in the assignment tool. So let me click that out of the way and add that rubric. You can also create a new rubric. I would suggest not doing that. From here, the rubric tool has improved greatly in the last year or two. At one time it was, I would say, the most difficult tool to use, but it's much easier now. But just like with the grade item, I would create the rubric in the rubric tool and then link the assignment to it. If I were to use more than one rubric, I would have to choose which one the score came from. Here is a new change, a new addition to the assignment tool. I can create a folder, I can set this folder where when I read the student assignments, it does not show me their name. It shows, whoops. Instead of showing me their name, it will show me I haven't tested it. I'm not sure if it is showing ID number or something, but it will not show the student's name in the paper. So the idea is that when I read it and grade it, I'm not knowing immediately whose paper it is. And you can do this anonymous marking. Once you publish the feedback, it will show you the name with that assignment. So if you have something with academic dishonesty or something like that, that you need to find out exactly who was this that turned this in, once you submit the feedback, once you publish the feedback, it will then show you the student names. Annotation tools, I would leave this checked by default, and we'll see here in a minute when we evaluate an assignment what annotation tools are available to us. So let me save. And go to our second tab here, restrictions. From this, I can, and if you, from yesterday with looking at quizzes, this is very similar to that same page in the quiz tool. I can hide the assignment from students. I can set due dates. I can set a start date, a due date, and an end date. So what are these? The start date is the date that the folder will become available for the student to submit something. Depending on if you allow late submissions, you can set a due date and an end date. If you do not allow late submissions, just select the end date. But I will allow students to submit papers for 72 hours after the deadline. They're losing a letter grade a day, but for those 3-day period, they can. So for my folder, it would show a due date of maybe Monday evening at 11:59 p.m. And as Mrs. Martin said yesterday, especially in the online environment, let's keep it consistent at 11:59 for that deadline. And then I can set an end date for me 3 days later at the same time. So now when the student submits their paper, when I go to look at the papers, it will show me if a student turned in their paper after the due date and obviously before the end date, because at the end date they can't submit anything after that. But it will show you that paper was turned in late, and it'll show you how late it was. Now, if you use these dates, you will need to put dates in the calendar. It will never show the start date. So that's a date you would need to populate into the calendar as a calendar entry. It will not automatically be put in there. If you use an end date and a due date, it will show the due date, but it will not show the end date. So if you use both of those, you will need to go in and put the end date in the calendar. It will always show the end date. That's the only one it will automatically show. Release conditions. We can control how students access material in Paul, and we can require them to do things in a certain order. You have to maybe view this film clip in the content area, maybe go to a page in the content area before you can go and submit the assignment on it. that's connected to that page. So you can attach where students have to, let's see, let's do a content. Okay, let's do quizzes, where they would have to complete a quiz before they could come to submit their paper. If you use a release condition, you need to be very specific with students as to what it is. If, for example, the student has to go to a page in content before they can submit to the assignment folder, students need to know that. If they go to the assignment folder without doing whatever the release condition was, it's just not going to let them submit. It's not going to say, you need to go and do this. It's just not going to allow them access. So if you use a release condition, please be very clear with the students as to what that release condition is. The last thing on this tab is special access. We saw special access yesterday with quizzes to make changes for ADA accommodations. Here you can also use it for access to the folder. If I allow somebody to submit a paper late, I don't have to reopen the folder to everybody. I can come in here, leave it at the default, allow students with special access to submit outside normal availability. If you choose the second option here, only the people you've added special access to will be able to see the assignment. So leave it at the default of allow them to submit outside normal availability. Click Add Users to Special Access. Maybe I want to give a due date here of a couple of days later for this student or these two students. Save. Now these two students have different availability dates, so they can turn in up until May 2nd, and their due date is the 29th. If you remember, I think the 27th was what the rest of the 27th is what the folder is set to. These students have this extra time. Save. We're not using objectives, so let's go to the Turnitin. In Turnitin, on the Turnitin tab, we can enable grade mark and originality check. The fact that I'm in a sandbox is not going to enable for me. Oh, it did enable it for me. I would leave it at manually sync grades. This is if you use grade mark. Grade mark is Turnitin's grading system using their website. You have to turn on grade mark even if you're using it to get originality check on. So let's talk for a second here about what does Turnitin do. When students submit their papers to the folder, it is automatically sent to Turnitin to be evaluated. Turnitin will take the text of their paper and will compare it to other sources, online sources, print sources, their classmates' papers, students who might have turned this assignment in last semester or 2 years ago. Every time an assignment is evaluated by Turnitin.com, it gets automatically added to their database. So I don't have to change my topics every semester, because if I get a student who takes a paper from a student that had me last year and tries to submit it, Turnitin will find it. I allow students to see the report, and you do have to click to let them see it. I think I Turnitin as more than just anti-plagiarism. I like to use it as a way to help students improve writing. For example, students can, when they submit their assignment, it takes about 10 or 15 minutes for the, it takes about 10 or 15 minutes for it to run. They can go back to pause, back to the assignment folder and pause, and look at the Turnitin report. When they look at it, maybe they notice a spot in their paper that is not paraphrased very well, or a spot that needs to be cited. They can correct it, resubmit their paper into pause, and have improved their writing there. We do separate training on Turnitin, so I don't have a Turnitin screenshot showing their current page, because it's changed a little bit. But what you would do is, when you click on the Turnitin report, you would look and see where is the highlighted text, because all the text that it finds from another source is highlighted. And if you look at it and say, okay, here's a highlighted text, but it's in quotation marks, it's cited, that's fine. In fact, give me 1 second here. And this is a little different than what they look like. Today, it's changed a little bit, but this is basically what the Turnitin report looks like. It shows the areas that are from other sources. Now, this is obviously a screenshot, but if this were a live screen, when I hover over it, it would show me a link to where that is online, or let me know where it was submitted. And I would come in here and look and say, okay, here's an area that is from another source, but it's in a block quotation, it's in quotation marks, it's cited, that's fine. Here, another sentence, but it's in quotation marks, it's cited, that's fine as well. If you get large blocks of text that are not cited, that is the red flag for plagiarism. And I would leave it at automatically check. If you don't leave it at automatically check, you have to go in and click for every single paper to be evaluated. So I would leave it at automatic. You can also make some other changes using Turnitin. Some optional settings that you can change as to exactly how you want the similarity report. Again, we do a separate training on using Turnitin, but there are some changes that you can make here from within the pause environment. So once we complete everything on this tab, if I have done everything I want to do in creating this folder, I would click Save and Close. If I was creating another folder right after it, I could click Save and New, and it would save this and open up a new one, just like yesterday was quizzes. You can save and close a question, or you can save and add a new question, where it would automatically open up for a new question to be added. Here we're going to save and close. So here is the example that I just created. Title, The key means that special access has been granted to somebody. It won't show you exactly what it is. You have to go in and see, but I know that somebody has special access to that. The grade item that it's tied to in the grade book, and that Turnitin is enabled, and the due date for the assignment. Now, let's look at evaluating an assignment. So to evaluate assignments, there are a couple of options. We're going to look at the simplest, doing it from within the PAWS environment. So there are a couple of other options. You can also use Turnitin grade mark to grade and give feedback, and there are some advantages to using that depending on exactly what you want to do. Or if you have a iPad, you can use the Grader app that Brightspace has, where you can do the grading on your iPad and then upload the documents to PAWS. But we're going to look at the simplest way to do it here from within the PAWS environment. So I need to go to this folder. So click on the name of the folder. Back here are my students who have submitted their papers. To evaluate the paper, and here I can, if I want to flag this paper, I can do so. I had come in a minute ago before we started this and had clicked on this, so it can change it. If I want to, I can change it back to unread. So to evaluate, I click evaluate, and it will open up the evaluation screen. I can download the file, whatever files that have been submitted. This one just has placeholder text in it. It shows me the student name, when it was submitted. I can flag it from here as well, or I can send the student an email. Excuse me, that's the marking read or unread. I apologize. I can download the files, or I can look at the submission history of when it was submitted. To grade and put feedback from within the PAWS environment, you would click View Document. And it will open up the document here, where you can come in and you can annotate on the document. I can make a choice of marking something with a pen. If I want to make a comment, I can make a comment. That would then be there for the student. I can, if I want to, focus on something, if I want them to look at a certain area, I can create a square around it. Or if I select text, I can make it bold, I can mark through it, I can underline it, or I can use the squiggly underline. I can also draw lines on it if I want to maybe underline something more than just, if maybe it's not a text document, maybe it's an image that I can mark on as well. I can also print it out and download from here. So once you have marked up the paper, and I can also leave a text. I can also leave a text comment, and let me move that where it's not in the text of the paper. So, and I have all the options here where I can change the font its color, anything I want to change with the text. Once I have read the paper and annotated it, I come over here to the right of the screen. Now, this is showing my student account, so it's showing my picture here, but if this were a student who had a picture uploaded to their Paul's account, it would be showing their picture. I can email the student from here in Paul's, or I can go to their student progress page. If I want to see the information on the assignments, I can click those and look at them. I can change the assignment. I can look at the student view of what they see when they go to submit their assignment. I generally keep those not selected, but that information is available if I want it. Evaluation and feedback. Here is the rubric. So I've read the paper, I annotated it, I then come over here to the rubric, click on it, and it will open up a rubric screen. This looks like the one that we saw a minute ago when I showed you the example of the rubric, though you notice as I move around the screen, it's highlighting wherever my cursor is. So once I've read the paper, I can come in here and I can, okay, this student did excellent on the thesis. If I want to change that feedback for that particular student, I can do so. If I want to add a note to them, it doesn't change the rubric, but it will change the feedback for that one student. They did good in arguments. They did excellent in evidence. Good and good. If you want to do an overall score, you may do that as well. And then close. And hold on 1 second. Let me do that again. Okay. All right. And as with things going wrong when you're demonstrating them, I'm not sure why it did not put the text in here. It should have put the text from the rubric here in the feedback area. I'm not sure why it didn't do it, but it should have. But it would take that text, put it in the feedback area. I can also, if I want to add an extra comment, I can do so as well. This shows me the gradebook item that it's tied to, and I can put in their score, 95. If I want to upload a file or record a video or audio message, I can do so, though keep in mind what we said earlier about audio and video messages. They take up a lot of bandwidth, and if you use video for ADA compliance, you need to make sure you type into the HTML editor here whatever it is you see in the video. Now, I prefer to grade all the assignments for that class, or all the submissions for this assignment before I release them. So once I have evaluated this student, I would click Save Draft, and it will save it as a draft. If I wanted the student to immediately see the assignment, I could click Publish, and it would immediately show them the feedback. Now that I saved it as a draft, and this is student number 4, so let me go back to another student. I can then come here to Jeff Goldblum's or any of the other students here and evaluate theirs. And once I have evaluated theirs, I would click Save as Draft. Here, let me put in a grade here. I'm not going to go back and do the rubric. Save as Draft. Once I have graded all the assignments, I come up here to the top left, back to Submissions. If you notice here, the two students I have evaluated, it shows when I saved the draft of their feedback. Let me also go in here and just put a grade for the other two. So it will show everybody being graded. Okay, so I have graded feedback for every student, but it's just draft now. So if I want to go back and change something, I can. It has not been released to the student. Once I have graded everybody, I can come up here and select all students or just select certain students. Select who I want to release their feedback. Click Select them, click Publish Feedback. I had not completed the rubric on those three, so that's what it's telling me, is that I didn't fill out the rubric on them, which I didn't. But if you grade all of them, you shouldn't get that message. But to keep things moving, I just put in a grade for there, so that's why it's giving me that pop-up. Am I sure that I want to publish? Yes. It will reload. Now it shows when I publish the feedback. When the student comes in and reads the feedback, it will show under the published date, it'll say read, and it will show the date and time that they read the feedback. So you can see whether students are reading your feedback. Now, one thing about when they read the feedback, this information is also put in the grade book. So if they look at the feedback in the grade book, it will not show here. This only shows where students come back into the assignment tool and look at their feedback, which is what I expect most students do. But a student could see it in the grade book and have not clicked here and have actually seen your feedback. So I've published the feedback to everybody. When these students come in, it will then show when they read the feedback. Let me go back up to the assignment page because I have one other thing I want to demonstrate. I want to demonstrate event log. So here, give me a second, let me delete. That's the folder I just created. If I delete a folder and decide I want it back, I can go to event log. There's the folder that I just deleted, 2:28 p.m. I can restore it. And it will restore it to the assignment page. This only works for this class, for this semester. It's only what's been turned in this shell since it's been created. So it's not something that it only goes back to the start of that semester, but anything that you delete in assignments, you can go back through event log and replace it, and restore it. If you delete something and decide that you don't want it deleted. At this point, I want to open up to questions. Are there any questions?
Hello?
Yes?
I'm hearing you guys. Can y'all hear that?
Hold on, let me mute my mic while I... Okay, what is your question?
Okay, I have a question specifically about one of my grades, and I had graded it, it's in assignments and all that type of stuff, and it's still showing up as an F for everybody in my grade book. It's kind of a little specific question. I don't know if that's something I need to get one-on-one later or not, though.
Okay, that is from a gradebook setting. I believe it was mentioned yesterday in yesterday's training. If you choose to show assignments that have not been turned in as a 0, it will show it as a 0. And if you are using a point system and it's constantly updating and showing them their grade, it's showing them their grade of the points they've earned against the entire semester. So if there's 1,000 points in the semester and they've only completed 200 of them, maybe this is the 3rd week of school, it's going to show an F until they get near the end of the semester. Did that help at all with the question?
Okay, John, I want to chime in. Is this the same course that we spoke of yesterday when I was showing you and I deleted your grades and I tried to fix your grade book so it appear with percentages and point, or is this another grade book? I mean, another course grade book? Hello?
I'm not sure exactly who asked the question, but is this the same one from yesterday?
It was me, John. This is Kim.
So that I just thought you were asking the faculty member if it was the one from yesterday.
Yes, I went through it. That was the same faculty as of yesterday. I remember her voice. She asked the question about her grade settings and everything. So what I did was I pretty much deleted everything that will cause her to have that view. And that's why I was asking if it's a different grade book this time, because the one I fixed yesterday should be working. And just have her email me and I'll answer her question. So you can continue to put your questions.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Hi. Hi, John. Hello.
I have a question.
Okay, what is it?
Yeah, can you please tell me, I missed that portion when you were talking about Turnitin, that what it is for and how it can be used.
Okay, Turnitin is a service that we use at Southwest where you enable Turnitin on the folder when students turn in their work, it will automatically be sent to Turnitin. Generally, what Turnitin uses are writing assignments, papers, essays, something like that. And what Turnitin does is they will take that paper and they will compare that paper to other sources. Online sources, print sources, other students' papers, other students from other schools, students who have turned it into you before. Every time a paper gets evaluated by Turnitin.com, it gets added to their database. So it will then show you how much of their paper is somewhere else, and it will show you in the paper where that text is. And it's something that can be used to, it still requires some interpretation, but it is something that is used to detect plagiarism in writing assignments.
All righty. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, John. On the page where you see updates and new emails, how accurate is that?
The page where you see updates, I'm not sure exactly where you're talking about.
I think it's on the content page. It shows I have 12 new updates and 91 new emails, but I don't see them. When I click on each one, I don't see 12 new submissions. I don't see 91 new emails.
Beverly, this is Kim.
Hey, Kim.
I will cover that piece in the email tool because I'll show you how to find those emails. So I'll show you that, how to use that feature. The other piece on the content page, where is it located on the content page? Is it in the course schedule, or where are you looking?
When I clicked on content and tried to upload a document, it usually goes to my computer and I can go to upload page, but it went to this page and it showed 12 new assignments.
Oh, you mean in the widget to the right?
Yeah,
It may have something to do with your calendar being associated with the tool from previous semesters or something. And when Kendall and Teresa goes over calendar in cloning, they can go over that piece with you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry about that. I hit a button and actually went out and just had to come back in. I missed what the question was. Anybody hear me?
Yes, John, I can hear you. I wanted to let you know that I spoke with Beverly and I told her we will take care of those matters in the email tool. In the email tool and in the content tool.
Okay.
John, can you hear me?
Okay. I was just checking. Thank you.
You hear me?
Do we have any other questions here?
John, can you hear me?
Okay, I'm not hearing any questions. Can somebody put something in the chat if you do have a question? I just want to make sure my sound hasn't dropped out. Okay, what was the question? Okay, so the question was answered, correct? Yes. Turnitin is free to students. It's not something that they have to pay for. It's a service that Southwest pays for that is free to all students, all faculty to use. Are there any other questions?
No, I'm fine. Thank you, John.
Okay. If you have any other questions, please let either email me or put in a help desk ticket, and the digital learning team will help you with whatever assistance that you need. I apologize for my difficulties here at the end, where for some reason my sound was not coming through. I'm not sure what happened. This is the first time I've presented like this. I've used it with my classes and showing a PowerPoint, but this is the first time I've kind of used this type of presentation. So I apologize for my sound problems there. So if there are no more questions, I will go on and exit the session. I'm not sure who, Kim, I guess if you created it, whoever it is that turns it off, I'm not sure.
John, I think we all have the ability to just log out, and yeah, I'll end the call with no problem. If no one else has any other questions. Mr. McHugh,
Thanks,
do you have a
John.
question? Okay.
Teresa Spillers
is now exiting.
Cheryl Green
is now exiting.